Hello and welcome to Basics for Gamers presents the basics of stealth in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Before we get started with stealth, it might be a good idea to do a quick review of the different states of detection. There are 4 states of detection. The first is unnoticed, and it applies to any creature you have absolutely no idea is nearby. The second is undetected. A creature is undetected when you do not know where it is. By definition, all unnoticed creatures will also be undetected, but if you know a creature is in the area, but you just don't know its exact location, then it is undetected, but is not unnoticed. The third state of detection is called hidden, and it applies when you know a creature's exact location, but you can't see it. And the last state of detection is called observed, and it applies to any creature that you can see. But note that if you can see a target, but not clearly, maybe because you're in dim lighting or the target is standing in fog, then that target is observed, but also has the concealed condition. This is material that we discuss in great length in our video about perception, so it is highly recommended that you go watch that video before continuing here, as we will be relying on information from that video as we proceed. A link to the video on perception is included in this video's description. When a character wishes to avoid being noticed, they use the stealth skill. The key ability score for stealth is dexterity, and all applications of stealth can be used untrained. When your attempt to hide is contested, the searching character's perception check is challenged by your stealth DC, and stealth DC is calculated as 10 plus your stealth skill bonus. This works pretty much the same as perception DC. The key to remember when deciding if you should make a stealth roll or use your stealth DC is you only roll on your turn when you use an action. And when it's not your turn and you're defending against someone else's action, then they compare their roll to your stealth DC. In normal circumstances, there would not be a challenge of rolls where one person rolls their stealth skill and another person rolls their perception. There are 3 stealth actions included in the core rules, the first of which is called Conceal an Object. This can either be something that you are carrying with you, like a dagger up your sleeve, or it could be something you hide in the environment, like a secret note planted underneath the roots of a stump. If you are hiding a small item that you are carrying, the GM rolls your stealth skill in secret and compares that total to the perception DCs of everyone you are hiding the item from. If your check total is higher than their perception DCs, then they do not notice that you're hiding anything. And note you only roll this check one time, not once for each creature you are hiding the object from. If a creature is actively searching you, for example, they're an alert guard and they're keeping a watchful eye out, then they roll a perception check against your stealth DC instead of relying on their perception DC. For example, you walk up to the door of a ballroom with 2 guards standing outside. They're checking guests before they enter for weapons, and you have a dagger hidden on you. On your turn, when you approach the guards, your stealth check would be rolled, which would then be contested by their perception DCs. Then, on the guards' turns, one of them takes the seek action to actively look you over before letting you pass. This guard would then roll their perception, and that total would be challenged by your stealth DC. Note that whatever you rolled on your turn when you took Conceal an Object is now irrelevant. When it's the guard's turn and they are using seek to search you, then it is their perception challenged by your static stealth DC. This works much the same way when hiding an object in the environment instead of carrying it with you, except in this case you would not roll any stealth check. Instead, you spend one action to hide the object, and if anyone performs a seek action in that area, then their perception check will be challenged by your stealth DC. And note that Conceal an Object is for hiding something that you already possess. If you want to pick something up without anyone noticing that you're picking it up, you would use the palm and object application of thievery instead of using the stealth skill. The second stealth action is called hide. Hide is used when you wish to lower your state of detection from observed to hidden. When you take the hide action, you roll a stealth check and compare the total to the perception DCs of anyone who is observing you, as long as you are either concealed from them or have a source of cover between you and them. If you are not concealed or do not have a source of cover, then you have nowhere to hide and the attempt automatically fails. If you do have cover, then you add the cover's bonus to your stealth check, but only for those creatures who are observing you from the other side of that cover. This is basically common sense. If the cover's not between you and them, then it doesn't give you any benefit. And likewise, if you lose your cover or concealment, you instantly become observed again. You also immediately become observed if you use any actions other than sneak, step, or hide. Now there are two exceptions to this, and the first is the strike action. If you strike a target while hidden, you resolve the attack first and don't become observed until after the attack. This means the target is flat-footed for the attack, and therefore the attacker can use abilities like sneak attack with their strike. But once the attack is resolved, the hiding character instantly becomes observed. And the second of the two exceptions to the rule that states any action other than hide, sneak, or step instantly makes you observed is the provision in the rules that states, unless the GM determines otherwise, the GM might allow you to perform an unobtrusive action without being noticed, possibly requiring another stealth check. The key word here is unobtrusive. For example, the seek action. If the hidden character wishes to perform the seek action, I think in virtually all cases the GM would agree that seeking meets the definition of unobtrusive and not make you instantly become detected when you perform that action. But it is up to every GM to decide on if an action is considered unobtrusive or not. Also note that you may not move out of your current space as part of a hide action. Hide is just for staying in place and changing your state of detection from observed to hidden. Disappearing behind cover or in a blanket of darkness is one way to lower your state of detection from observed to hidden, but another option is to trick those people observing you into looking the other way. You can accomplish this with the Create a Diversion use of the Deception skill. When using Create a Diversion, you do something to trick any onlookers into momentarily turning their backs on you and hope by the time they turn back around, you'll have disappeared. This requires a deception check contested by the perception DCs of everyone observing you. Your detection state lowers from observed to hidden for anyone whose perception DC is equal to or lower than the total of your deception check. This hidden condition lasts until the end of your current turn, or if you perform an action which would reveal you, same as we discussed with the hide action. Any creature observing you whose perception DC is higher than the total of your deception check not only continues to observe you, but is also fully aware that you tried to trick them. Regardless of success or failure, once you use Create a Diversion on a creature, they receive a +4 circumstance bonus to their perception DCs against any future attempts by you to create another diversion for 1 minute. But once your detection state is hidden, either by causing a distraction, performing the hide action, or by other means, you can then use Sneak to lower your detection state to undetected and move away from your location. In order to take the sneak action, you must first be hidden or undetected. In other words, if any of the people you are trying to sneak past can see you, then you can't use the sneak action. You would need to spend an action first to hide, thus lowering your detection state from observed to hidden, and then another action to sneak away. Once you declare that you are sneaking, you may move up to half your speed. At the end of your movement, the GM rolls your stealth check for you in secret and compares the result to the perception DCs of everyone who you are undetected or hidden from at the start of the sneak action. If you have cover or greater cover throughout the entire movement, the GM adds your cover bonus to the stealth check that they roll in secret. At the end of your movement, you instantly become observed by any creature who you do not have cover from or the concealed condition against. Everyone else has their perception DCs compared to your stealth check total, and you gain the undetected state with anyone you rolled a success against, or you keep the undetected state if you are already undetected before taking the sneak action. And just a point here as a technicality, when you take the sneak action, if you are hidden, you instantly become undetected at the start of the sneak action, and you maintain the undetected state throughout your movement to the ending square where you stop your sneak. If your check fails against a creature that you do have cover or concealment against in that last square, then you become hidden to them. They can't see you, but you must have made a sound that gave away your location. If you critically fail, then the creature is able to observe you as long as they have line of sight to that space. And just like with the actions we've already discussed, once you are undetected following a sneak action, you become observed as soon as you take any action other than hide, step, or another sneak, unless the GM rules that the action is unobtrusive. And if you strike, then your target is flat-footed for that attack, and you become observed as soon as that attack is resolved. With any other actions, you become observed before the action is resolved. Let's look at a few examples. We'll be using Mauricio for these. She's a 5th level rogue. She has a speed score of 35 feet, a plus 11 bonus to perception, and plus 13 to stealth. This also makes her perception DC 21 and her stealth DC is 23. In this scenario, Mauricio is sneaking through a wizard's academy to steal a rare tome. She believes it to be in the collection of one of the teachers and has arrived at the corridor outside a dormitory with cloth partitions separating the students' beds and the teacher's office to the west. She sneaks to the window and stops. She spots a student sitting on his bed reading. Since he is not making any attempt to be undetected, she instantly observes him. Since she ended her sneak in this space, the GM rolls her stealth check in secret and contests the total with the perception DCs of anyone with line of sight to her. The GM also adds a bonus to her check for the cover that she's behind. Her total is well over the reading student's perception DC, so the GM tells her that she doesn't believe that she's been spotted. Her detection state is unnoticed and undetected. With her first action on the next round, she takes another sneak action and moves to the door. As with before, she would need the GM to roll a stealth check in secret, but it's fairly trivial here given that no one is able to observe her from the other side of the doors. Being extra cautious, she presses her ear to the door and listens. This is a seek action. If there are creatures on the other side of this door who are trying to avoid attention, her perception check would be contested by their stealth DCs. If there are creatures on the other side of the door who are not trying to avoid attention, then her perception check is contested by a lower DC as deemed appropriate by the GM. Mauricio tells the GM that her perception bonus is plus 11 and the GM rolls this check in secret. They then tell Mauricio's player that she can hear voices on the other side of the door but can't quite make out what they're saying or their exact location in the room. With her third action, she declares that she wants to open the door quietly and peer in. This is an interact action, and would be up to the GM to determine if it is considered to be unobtrusive or if it would instantly reveal her presence to the room. Were I the GM here, I would ask Mauricio's player to roll a stealth check as part of the interact action that I would then compare to the perception DCs of creatures in the room. I would also grant her a small bonus to that check if she took additional measures to be quiet, like applying oil to the door's handle and hinges. She rolls 1d20 plus 13, and the GM tells her two things. First, once the door opens, she can hear two voices talking on the other side of a cloth partition. Since the two students were not trying to stay hidden, she automatically detects them. Since she is perceiving the two chatting students with hearing, which is an imprecise sense, they have the hidden detection state. But the GM determines there is narrow line of sight to the reading student, so she is observing him. She, however, is both unnoticed and undetected to all three of them. Had she failed her stealth check opening the door, the GM would likely rule that she becomes hidden to the chatting students, but might be observed by the reading student. With the first action of the next round, Mauricio takes the sneak action. The first requirement for sneaking is you must be either hidden or undetected before you can attempt it. She is both unnoticed and undetected, so she meets that requirement. The second requirement is she must have cover or concealment against all targets she's sneaking past at the start of her sneak. If we draw target lines from the center of her square to the center of each student's square, we see each of them pass through a solid object, which means she has cover. With the sneak action, she can move up to half her speed. In Mauricio's case, a speed of 35 feet means she can move 3 squares while sneaking. She quietly steps into the room and ends her movement here. The last requirement for sneak is that you must end your movement in a space that has cover or concealment. You only need to have cover or concealment in the space where you start the sneak and the space where you end it. By law, you do not need to maintain cover or concealment throughout the entire movement. However, if you do have cover for the entire movement, you get to add its cover bonus to your stealth check. For example, when Mauricio enters this square, the GM could rule that she no longer has cover or concealment from the student who is reading. However, the rule is you only need cover or concealment when you start and when you end your movement, so she can pass through this square without issue. In the narrative, she waits until the student reaches for a new book or rubs his eyes or yawns or does something else that would distract him for just an instant and allow her to pass through that square. At the end of her movement, the GM rolls her stealth check in secret and reports that no one seems to be aware of her presence. She is still unnoticed and undetected by all 3 students. The reading student is observed by her, and the chatting students are hidden to her since she knows their locations but can't see them. A creature that is undetected instantly becomes observed if they take any action other than hide, sneak, or step, unless the GM rules the action is unobtrusive. If Mauricio wished to attack either of the students adjacent to her, she could spend an action to do so. The student she attacks would be flat-footed since she is undetected by them, and she would have to pass a DC 11 flat check since the target is hidden to her. At the end of the attack, she then becomes observed. She decides instead to take a step action and move closer to the door. With her third action, Mauricio attempts to quietly open the door just wide enough for her to peer in. This is an interact action, and the GM determines it is unobtrusive, especially since none of the 3 students have line of sight to the door. Her stealth check is compared to the perception DCs of everyone in the area, and the GM tells her that no one seems to have noticed. She is now able to look into the next room. She doesn't need to take a seek action to notice the teacher standing over a table brewing a potion. Her stealth check when opening the door was higher than his perception DC, so he is unaware that she's there. He is observed by her, and she is unnoticed and unaware to him. That's the end of her turn, but while she's waiting for her next turn to come around, a guard walks the length of the hall. He's patrolling and using the seek action as he walks, so when he passes this window, the GM would roll his perception check. This total is contested by Mauricio's stealth DC of 23, plus 2 for the cover that she receives from the crate that is between them. If the total of the guard's perception check is 25 or higher, he notices her. For the sake of brevity, we'll say that his check failed and he walks away. Now, for discussion, let's say instead of a guard walking past who's actively using the seek action, instead a couple of students pass in the hallway. As long as they are not actually using the seek action, they have no chance of detecting Mauricio at all. You would not roll their perception checks if they are not using the seek action, nor would you compare their perception DCs to any of the stealth rolls that Mauricio has already made. But it's also worth mentioning that Mauricio would be instantly spotted by the students if she ever lost the cover between her and them. If a student ever walked into the dorm with her in clear view, she would instantly become observed. Things have been going pretty smooth for Mauricio so far, but for the sake of discussion, let's say she was spotted on her way out of the academy. She's being chased by a guard and hopes to lose him in the stacks of the academy library. At the start, they are both being observed by each other. Mauricio does have cover here, so her player may be tempted to say that they're just going to take the sneak action and move away. But unfortunately, one of the requirements to sneak is you must be hidden or undetected at the start of that action, and she is observed. So in this case, Mauricio would need to spend her first action to hide. She would roll her stealth skill plus cover bonus, and the GM would compare that total against the guard's perception DC. We'll say he has a perception bonus of plus 6, so her total needs to be a 16 or higher for her to hide. That's a pretty easy check with a plus 13 bonus and cover. We'll say she succeeded, which then lowers her state of detection from observed to hidden. The guard can no longer see her, but knows she's in that square hiding behind the shelf of books. Now with her second action, she can sneak and move away. At the end of her move, she still has cover, so the GM rolls a stealth check once more against the guard's perception DC. We'll say she succeeded again, and with her third action, takes another sneak action to move here. She still has cover, and another stealth check is rolled as before. The guard has a speed score of 20 feet in his armor, so with his first action he strides to here. He has no line of sight to Mauricio, so she is still undetected to him. He takes another stride action and moves here. Determined to find the thief, he spends his third action to seek and rolls a perception check against Mauricio's stealth DC of 23 plus cover bonus. Note again that this roll is against her static stealth DC and not the total of her last stealth check. If he succeeds on this check, Mauricio's detection state moves one step and she becomes hidden. He'll be able to know her location by hearing her, but cannot see her. If he critically succeeds, then the GM could rule that there is narrow line of sight from his space to hers, and in that case, she would become observed. If that happens, Mauricio would need to spend her first action hiding again, and then her second action to sneak away once more. And if on his third action, had the guard decided not to seek, but instead took another stride action and moved here, he would have instantly observed Mauricio, as she no longer has cover or concealment against the guard. In this video we discussed the stealth skill. The key ability for stealth is dexterity, and all stealth actions can be used untrained. When a character's attempt to hide is challenged during another character's turn, the seeking character rolls their perception, which is challenged by the hiding character's stealth DC. Stealth DC is calculated as 10 plus stealth bonus. When it comes to stealth skill and stealth DC, the rule of thumb is if it is your turn, you roll stealth contested by other people's perception DC. But if it is not your turn, then they roll their perception, and that is contested by your stealth DC. There are 3 stealth actions. The first is Conceal an object. If you hide the object on yourself, your stealth roll is contested by the perception DCs of anyone who you do not want to notice it. If another character uses the Seek action on their turn, they roll their perception versus your stealth DC to notice the hidden object. If you hide the object in the environment, you do not roll anything, but if someone uses the Seek action in that area, their perception roll is contested by your stealth DC. The second stealth action is Hide, and this is for when you want to lower your detection state from observed to hidden. You must have cover or concealment to hide, and your stealth check is challenged by the perception DCs of anyone observing you. If successful, you become hidden, but do not move from your space as part of the action. Another way to lower your detection from observed to hidden is by creating a diversion with the Deception skill. In this case, you roll Deception contested by the perception DCs of others, and if successful, you become hidden until the end of your current turn. If you fail the check, not only are you still observed, but they also know you are trying to trick them. And regardless of success or failure, once you attempt to create a diversion, those targets gain a +4 bonus to any other attempts by you to create a diversion for the next minute. The third stealth skill is Sneak. If you are hidden or undetected, and you have cover or concealment against your enemies, you can move up to half your speed, after which your stealth skill is compared to the perception DCs of enemies in the area. If you have cover throughout the entire movement, you add the cover's bonus to your stealth check. If you do not have cover or concealment in the square that you ended your movement, you instantly fail against those enemies with unobstructed lines of sight to you and become observed. If you succeed the check, you are undetected. If you fail the check, you become hidden. If you critically fail, you become observed. While hidden or undetected, you instantly become observed if you attempt any action other than hide, step, or sneak. Two exceptions to this are any actions that the GM rules are unobtrusive, or when you take the strike action, in which case the target is flat-footed for the attack and you become observed after the attack is resolved. With that, we'll bring this video to a close. If you found this video helpful, please give us a like, and don't forget to click that subscribe button and the bell so you never miss out on our future videos. Leave us a comment letting us know what topics you'd like to see covered in our future videos, and we can always be reached through our Twitter and Facebook pages too. If you'd like to use some of the maps that we feature in our videos in your own games, you can find them at Maps of Mastery. A link to that store can be found in the description. Thanks for watching, take care, and we'll see you soon with more basics for your favorite tabletop games.